It was on the planet Skaro that my old enemy the Master was finally put on trial. They say he listened calmly as his lists of evil crimes were read, and sentence passed. Then he made his last, and I thought somewhat curious request. He demanded that I, the Doctor, a rival Time Lord, should take his remains back to our home planet, Gallifrey. It was a request they should have never have granted. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the one, the only, the 1996 TV movie, written by Matthew Jacobs and is directed by Geoffrey Sack. This would be the only televised stories of the 1990s. Doctor Who had been off the air for about 7 years prior to this story, and it was such a big, massive deal. And this was a passion project by producer Philip Segal, who has been trying to get a Doctor Who movie made since the 1980s, even when Doctor Who was still on air. However, there was a lot of complications and background behind this story, and if you haven't heard, I highly recommend you research the original scripts for the TV movie, or at least a Doctor Who movie during the 90s. They are some of the most wacky, ridiculous, and probably some of the worst ideas to Doctor Who that you are ever hear. And we're probably glad that we didn't get those interpretations. One of the most famous of these scripts is one which is known as the Legally Bible, in which they were going to, and I hell bent you not, were going to reboot Doctor Who, showing the origins of the Doctor by having him be not only a descendant of Barusa, but also have him as the illegitimate brother of the Master, to when they two have to go search in the universe for their for their father Ulysses, so they can restore Gallifrey to its former glory and send it out of a dark age. There were also going to be spider Daleks. There were going to be... It was just an absolutely bonkers idea, and I'm so glad... Though I am really interested in hearing about the Legally Bible and the other stories, there was actually a planned movie by Steven Spielberg called Doctor Who, Last of the Time Lords. So that's really interesting, but nothing came of that. But it's always lovely to hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories which led up to what we got. Now, this is the first ever, and as far as I'm aware, the only co-production between the BBC and an American company to finance Doctor Who. As this story was both financed by BBC, Universal, because they had worked on the project when it was part of the Legally Bible, and Fox, who released it on their channels in America. Now, the main consensus is that despite Paul McGann, who makes his introduction here, being a fantastic doctor who would earn his right as one of the greats in his audio dramas, this movie isn't very good. And yeah, true, it has a lot of problems, but I want to quickly denote a miscomprehension, I'm sure that's not the word I'm looking for, about this story. For you see, a lot of people thought it was a massive failure, and the reason it failed so bad was because the story was bad, despite the fact that that physically cannot happen, because, you know, when you're watching it for the first time, you're not going to know if it's good or not. So Yeah. But the story, the TV movie, was actually a huge success in Britain. In America, however, which was the pin, shall we say, on whether this was to be followed up by a brand new series of Doctor Who, because it was owned by Fox, because this movie was run by Fox, and if it was successful in America, it's where Fox would be like, okay, we will continue with making more Doctor Who. And it failed in the rating department in America. The reasoning why is because it aired during a very highly anticipated episode of the American show Roseanne, which was extremely popular. Because of that, people were watching that instead of the Doctor Who movie, and the ratings failed. Another misconception a lot of people have is that this story was quickly hated by everybody, especially the Doctor Who fan base. That is not true. In fact, when it came out, a lot of critics, especially British critics, really liked the TV movie. It was not until years later did people when rewatching it and realizing, it's like, hold on, that doesn't make any sense. That also doesn't make any sense. Wait, why did he do this? Why did he do that? How did this happen? How did that happen? Did the story slowly fade into this legendarily bad story of the TV movie that we now know? Now, the TV movie, I will admit, the story itself is not good. There's a lot of issues with it. There's plot holes, there's things that brush up too quickly and doesn't make much sense. And the story is just a complete mess in terms of its pacing. It seems to be going really fast. However, I want to state this because there's more ways of looking at a story than purely on its script. There's other things to consider, like the production of it, the atmosphere, the tension of it. And because of those other elements, I actually really, really love the TV movie. I might even put it in my top 40. I'm not quite sure. Sure, the script makes no sense and it is very weak, and some creative decisions were a bit questionable. But overall, there's a lot to like here. And just purely on the record, this story has my favourite Doctor Who intro with my favourite Doctor Who theme rendition, which actually opens up with the monologue which I did, when the actual Doctor Who logo appears, which is the one which all of these Doctor Who DVDs use, which is actually a reimagined version of the 1970s version 1 logo. Very interesting stuff, the John Pertwee era. I don't know why, if there's some sort of connection there, but anyway. And it starts with the famous middle 8 piece of the Doctor Who theme song, which a lot of people seem to really criticise it, but I personally absolutely love it, and it's my favourite rendition of the theme. It also has my favourite TARDIS, both in its exterior. The TARDIS, just something about it looks absolutely striking. It seems like it just feels movie TARDIS. You look at it and you're like, right, that is the TARDIS of the movie. It also has my favourite TARDIS interior. Wow! That TARDIS is awesome. Now, this story was originally criticised for actually bringing out a new TARDIS design. What? How can you change the TARDIS design, the classic white, almost cleansiness of the original TARDIS? How can you tamper with that? But the production designer, Richard Houlihan, I think I'm mispronouncing that. He gave the TARDIS a gothic Victorian era library feel, and it fits so well. Both as in it just looks completely awesome, and as well fit in the character of the Doctor. We also have some great costumes. Jodie Woodsman's costumes, especially for the 8th Doctor, are some of my favourites. The 7th Doctor also gets a new costume in here. And the music, it's instrumental music by John Deeply. Fun fact, he's also the composer of Iron Man 2, which is actually one of my least favourite soundtracks of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he scores this as well. And this is actually one of my favourite Doctor Who scores. It's epic, it's memorable. One of my favourite tracks is The Chase, which I've retroactively, I guess, put in my head that it's the 8th Doctor's leitmotif, his theme song, when he's doing all the action. So yeah, we haven't actually talked about the story yet. So shall we do that? So the story actually starts off with the monologue. We get the intro. And right off the bat, the story looks absolutely stunning. But there are massive bloody plot holes. In the description, the Doctor explains that the Master was put on trial on Skaro, where he was then executed for his vast crimes across the galaxy by the Daleks. 1. Daleks holding trials. 2. Daleks actually grant his last request and allow the Doctor to take his remains back to Gallifrey. What? 3. The Dalek voices in this story right at the start, they literally only appear like, you only just hear them say like exterminate, exterminate. It's actually voiced by the director, Geoffrey Sack, and they sound absolutely horrible. However, the CGI on the space scenery, when we see the outside of Skaro, the camera angle of the Master's eye floating in space, which is actually a reference to Survival, the last televised story of the classic series, in which the Master was actually was gaining the virus of the cheetah people. So very great continuity there, but we'll talk about continuity later on. And the eye then forms into the Master's trial section, and he puts the camera then like pans down to reveal the Master in chains in this weird contraption, which I think looks really cool. But to get the cheetah eye, they had to give the Master this really dorky looking helmet. Now, in terms of canonicity, we need to talk about the Master in this small little appearance. There seems to be a massive debate on which incarnation this Master is, whether it is the Anthony Ainley Master, I believe they're called, I can't remember what the Virgin New Adventures Master is called, but or if this is supposed to be a completely new Master, specifically for the intro of this, because he's played by, I can't remember his name, but he's a Canadian actor, and he literally only appears in this small little segment, and because of the helmet, the shadow is covering his face, so we never actually see what the Master's last appearance is. So, yeah, that's something. My personal headcanon is that it was the Anthony Ainley's Master, but, you know, there's no confirmation there. Doctor Who's canon is very loose, so you can imagine it as whatever your headcanon is. Hell, it might even be the Alex McQueen Master from the audio dramas if you really want to go in that direction. So we see the Doctor then taking the ashes to a particular monastery in the TARDIS, where the Doctor is still in his 7th incarnation. They actually brought back Sylvester McCoy to film the regeneration element of the story. And they also gave him a new costume, which I absolutely adore, and is my favourite 7th Doctor's costume. So the 7th Doctor then does something which we never really see the Doctor do before. He relaxes. He puts his feet up and relaxes. He puts he's got a vinyl record which is really cool, which is playing a song. I think it was made especially for the movie. It's like, I think it's called like In a Dream. And he's sitting back and he relaxes and he reads The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Maybe that's a little reference to Time Lash. Who knows? Well, all of a sudden, the Master's ashes, the container that's keeping the Master's ashes suddenly breaks, and a liquid creature comes out of it as the tea starts flipping up and the record starts rupturing. Now, to see the 7th Doctor like this is very unusual. He's normally used as the chess master, but Sylvester McCoy plays him a little bit different in this. Whilst during his era of the show, he's the manipulative chess master or the clown. In here, he is the god that's retired. He's someone who's clearly, he's done, in a sense, with his epic adventures, and he just wants to try and get some time to relax. He'll do anything just to get to pick up his feet and watch and listen to some music and read a book whilst the TARDIS is in flight. Just something to relax upon. So it's nice to see that there's some sort of development which expanded media could pick up on of this era of the show. It's important to note that Ace does not appear, leaving a massive gap in the 7th Doctor's era, allowing, again, for expanded media to be considered canon, as we can have a lot of adventures in between. I would be reminiscent in mentioning that in the last Virgin New Adventure novel that features the 7th Doctor, Longbarrow actually chronologically takes place right before this, to the point where they actually even mention taking the Master's ashes back to Gallifrey. But there's another plot hole. How the hell is the Master doing all this? He's dead. It's not like in The Keeper of Traken or The Deadly Assassin, where he's used up his remaining regenerations, but he's still alive. He's just really decayed and bruised. He just can't change anymore. And when it comes to the Anthony Ainley's body, he stole that body. It wasn't his. He merged with Nessa's father to become that incarnation of the Master. Here, he's dead. He's ashes. He was annihilated by the Daleks, and now he's all of a sudden this liquid snake creature which can still possess people's bodies. That is never explained in the film, and it's never like, it's like the way it's described in the story is that one of the rules of the universe is obviously when people die, they die, but the Master's so determined, so eager to survive, that he's literally like willed himself to live when he's ashes! Now, what? The story doesn't make any sense. So the Master's liquid form, I believe in expanded media, this form is known as the Deathworm Master. I don't know if there is any story featuring the Deathworm Master, or they ever explain how he gained this ability to cheat death. And if he can cheat death, why does he need the Doctor's body? That's one of the storylines in this, is that he's trying to get the Doctor's body. I mean, sure, the body he takes in this story is decaying and he's dying. but he can turn into a slug and take over anybody. Who cares if the Doctor's body or not? Apart from really, the Doctor's his arch enemy and foiled his plans, taking his body is just really more of a, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense how that scene is just absolutely baffling. It's never explained in the movie. Whether it's explained in the novelisation or in expanded media, I don't know. But anyway, the ashes go into the TARDIS console and crash land it in San Francisco in 1999 on December the 30th, I believe. So it's nearer up to New Year's Day, to the new millennium. And the Doctor, trying to figure out what's going on, decides to go outside. Now at San Francisco, we meet up with a character named Chang Li, who's part of a rookie gang of sorts, and they're running away from gunmen who are trying to shoot at them. We never learn why or anything, but we can kind of get the idea that this is a rough environment and kids get into gangs and cause trouble and stuff. And so they're running away from these group of people to when people get trapped in this corner, and the rival group starts shooting at Chang Li and his friends, to which all but Chang Li dies, and Chang Li is basically backed up to the wall. There's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. And he's basically about to get executed. I just want to state how amazing the direction is in this story. Whether Geoffrey Sachs is a great director in terms of story is a different question altogether. But in terms of visual appeal, absolutely stunning. Especially how this would be the first time we see the TARDIS dematerialise as people are about to fire, and the TARDIS feels like it's forcing from the heavens to land. As Chang Li's standing there and he looks up at the sky, and we see the wind twirling around him as the TARDIS dematerialises with lightning everywhere, and it's just filled with epicness. I can imagine this in a movie screen. I would have loved to watch this. That would have been an amazing idea, watching a TV movie on a big screen. That would be amazing. And right after that, then the gang shoot the TARDIS with not even making a dent. Now here's another element of the story a lot of people criticise, which I actually like. The Seventh Doctor comes out to the TARDIS, to which the gunmen start shooting him, and he collapses to the floor. The sounds of sirens in the background, which distracts them, and they run away. Whilst Chang Li looks around and sees the Doctor injured, and he's basically is like, right, don't worry, we'll get you to an ambulance. You're gonna be fine. The Doctor sees the liquid form of the Master coming out the TARDIS keyhole, but when Chang Li looks behind him, there doesn't seem to be anything there. A lot of people criticise this story and how they dealt with the death of the Seventh Doctor, and how this particular incarnation, this master, chess master, times champion, was just shot in an alleyway. No Daleks, no Cybermen, not even like the Master injuring him. Just some rookie thugs getting a shot at the Doctor. But I actually like this. It's kind of poetic, this incarnation. Probably the most powerful Doctor yet. Is just gunned away like a normal person's death. Like there was no hidden meaning, there's no master plan. He just gets out the TARDIS, gets shot, collapses onto the floor. And it's just something... I mean, sure, the way the Sylvester McCoy kind of falls to the floor isn't very flattering, but I still like the premise anyway. I still like the idea of this incarnation of the Doctor just his death was basically an accident, and it's treated like a real death, like, at least from other characters' point of view, like he is dying. And so he's been taken to the hospital. We also get a nice little reference to Chang Li. He's in the ambulance and he's got to sign the guy, but he doesn't know who the Doctor is, so he gives a name as John Smith as an alias. Now let's talk about references. This story is full of little hidden Doctor Who references, which references the classic series. Some of them are really well handled in my opinion, with the TARDIS having the Rassilon symbol, the statues with Rassilon's face on it. I actually like the John Sims little reference here. Some references seem to be against continuity. This is the first story since The Visitation in terms of television-wise that shows the 7th Doctor having a sonic screwdriver, which obviously he never actually had during his period of the show, as it was destroyed during The Visitation, the 5th Doctor story. And also as well, I guess you can technically count the 7th Doctor's appearance as a massive reference to the classic series. A lot of people have criticised the story and felt that the story should really start off with Paul McGann. And I can kind of see where they're coming from. It would have been great to open this story to newcomers. In fact, that's what they did when the show came back in 2005 with Russell T Davies and Christopher Eccleston running the show. Personally, I do actually like them bringing Sylvester McCoy. It means that we get introduced to the idea of regeneration. We get to see the regeneration for a starter, unlike Colin Baker till Sylvester McCoy. Here we actually do see it. And it gives a little bit of a mystery for people who aren't too well versed into Doctor Who. It's like, wait, how can he change its face? And then it can easily click then that he's not human and these ideas can flow through. So the Doctor takes to the hospital, where the nurse that will be operating on him gets introduced, Grace. Now, Grace actually gets introduced in a pretty silly scene, but again, it's one of those scenes which really emphasises Geoffrey Sax's style of directing, which might be a bit anti-beneficial to the plot. As we get introduced to her, of her watching an opera, she's played up as a huge fan of opera, and she gets a call from the ambulance, from the hospital, saying, right, we need you to come in to operate on a shot wound victim. And really, you can clearly tell the way that it pans out. The only reason this scene exists is so we can have a really stylized corridor scene of Grace running through the corridors with the opera music playing in the background in a very fancy dress. Now, Grace becomes the companion of this story. I really like Grace in this adventure. She's someone that we've never really been introduced before. And is a type of character which I'm surprised Doctor Who has never done. A doctor travelling with a doctor. Grace is an actual medical doctor, and she actually can keep up a bit with the technobabble, though she is all still strange to the whole world of aliens and monsters and stuff. In that regard, she's much more intertwined with Liz Shaw from the Third Doctor era. Someone who's a lot more knowledgeable with the scientifics, but still new with the whole, but still a big ground base in the modern day, even though this story takes place 3 or 4 years after the actual air of the show. But I don't care. I consider this a present day story. So Grace is operating on the Doctor, and one scene, I don't know what to think about this scene, because they actually let her play music while she's operating. Now, before I used to think this was a really stupid idea or a really stupid scene, but then I watched the MCU film Doctor Strange, where the exact same thing happens. Doctor Strange is listening to music whilst he's operating on a gunshot victim. So I'm actually not too sure if this is an actual thing that doctors do. They play music to calm their nerves. I mean, it's really strange that 2 franchises about fictional doctors both have scenes where somebody's operating on a gunshot victim and there's music playing in the background. It's very strange. I don't know. I'm just rambling on that scene. But the music played here is Madame Butterfly by Puccini. Now, for those of you who weren't keeping up with these Doctor Who marathon videos, in the story Signs and Wonders, the Doctor hears Puccini's Madame Butterfly as an important event in his life, whether it'll be expecting a birth or a death. I guess in this case it's kind of both. He doesn't know until this moment, and in fact, in this story, it actually wakes him up from the operation, from the mask, as he calls out. It's like, Madame Butterfly, Puccini. And then he's like, please don't operate me. I'm not like you, I'm not human. I need a baridium clock. This is 1999, isn't it? Yeah, we're going to be talking about the baridium clock in a bit now. But the idea of the retroactively of the audio dramas that allows Madame Butterfly to be this prediction, this destiny of the 7th Doctor, where he's going to end up, I actually really like, and it still fits with the TV movie. But Grace gets some complications because the Doctor's not human, and the Doctor has a cardiac arrest, which kills him. The 7th Doctor is dead, and he seems to be dead for a long time. Usually in Doctor Who, the regeneration is almost instantly from the actual death itself. Now, I actually think there is an explanation for this. If you see, most regenerations so far have appeared inside the TARDIS, and it has actually been explained in the first story with regeneration, the 10th Planet and Power of the Daleks, that the TARDIS actually helps the Doctor with his regeneration. In the 2 cases in which the Doctor does not regenerate in the TARDIS, he actually gets help from the 3rd Doctor. We get another Time Lord who says the regeneration is already happening. I'll give it a push to speed up the process. So the regeneration will happen immediately. And in Logopolis, the 4th Doctor regenerates due to the help of the Watcher, which is actually this amalgamation of a Doctor from the decaying universe of some sort. This is the first story in which the Doctor is shown to die outside the TARDIS and having no help to regenerate, which might actually explain why his regeneration takes so long. That, I know, is a complete ramble, but I just think it's a really interesting point of view. So the Doctor's body gets taken to the morgue. We have these 2 silly side characters, and one of them is watching Frankenstein, the 1931 movie, which is actually my introduction to that film. That's how I learned about the Boris Karloff thing. It's also a really nice little foreshadowing to the events that in the 8th Doctor audio dramas, he travels with Mary Shelley, the writer of Frankenstein. So that's really cool. And the regeneration takes place, which what I find, and again, really interesting. This happens half an hour into the story. It's basically a 7th Doctor story for half an hour of the adventure. Very strange, yeah. Now let's talk about the regeneration itself. I love the Sylvester McCoy's point of view. They basically warp his face through a trial, and you can see Sylvester McCoy's really comfortable with warping his face, whilst they add an extra effect to manipulate it. Then we get a really smooth transition into Paul McGann. But you can kind of clearly see he's uncomfortable with warping his face. So you can, instead of Sylvester McCoy kind of going, you see Paul McGann just going, kind of clearly uncomfortable. It isn't a great look for him to begin with. And that's only a little segment of the regeneration, as well, leads up to him basically waking up whilst they're watching Frankenstein with the monster's hand falling down. The Doctor's hand falls down, and you see cold air coming out of the Doctor's mouth, which reminds me a lot of something similar happens with the 10th Doctor. So I don't know if Russell T Davies got influence for that. Speaking of the new series, this story does a lot of firsts which would carry on into the new series. It's the first story since the first ever Doctor Who intro not to have the Doctor face in it. It just has starring Paul McGann, something which would become a commonplace in the new series. The intro actually looks almost identical to, at least it's like the same vein of the Vortex and the TARDIS and stuff, and the logo kind of like flipping through that in the new series. So, and it also as well, it's one of the first massive redesigns to the TARDIS, where the column is actually like detached to the ceiling. So again, I don't know if Russell T Davies was like, watch the story, he's like, I like these elements, let's put them into our show. But I just find that extremely interesting. But then we get another what the hell moments, as in the morgue, the Doctor's actually shown to like smash the door. So the Doctor has super strength, like the Hulk strength. Again, it's one of those cases where I think Geoffrey Sachs looks at the more the visual appeal than the actual terminology of the story. I mean, the Doctor smashes a bolted, like, thick iron door. How does he do that? This could be explained in the Russell T Davies era with the idea that after a Doctor regenerates, he still has a bit of regeneration energy. So that could be a part of it, but really, I find that really, really odd scene. And it's revealed after the Doctor wanders around the hospital, which seems to have no other staff members anywhere. It's revealed that the Doctor has lost his memory. The Doctor's suffering from amnesia. This would become much humorous later down the line, as the 7th Doctor specifically is well known in Expanded Media to suffer from amnesia. He suffers from it at least 8 times in the BBC Books novels and a few times in the audio dramas. In fact, the last time it's known to happen is in the story Rage of the Time Lords, the War Master box set, where the 8th Doctor suffers a memory loss. And that happened in 2010. That happened last year. That's just, it's like a running joke between the fandom that the eighth Doctor keeps losing his memory. I have no real comment on it. It just seems to be a cliche for the seventh Doctor, but he doesn't seem to remember anything, and he goes around looking for clothes to wear, which is and there's also somebody like having a costume party soon, so he finds this like really like Victorian get-up. Now the costume by Jorah Woodman is fantastic. I absolutely love this Victorian Edwardian style costume. I've seen a lot of people say that it's basically a coloured version of the William Hartnell costume. I personally can't see it. I think there's enough variations that I can't really see the comparison. Apart from really, he has the same like collar and the same, I don't know what the fluff thing, the scarf thing is called, the scarf tie thing. He kind of has like that. But yeah, it just looks absolutely stunning. It really fits the Doctor. Now he seems to recognise Grace, and so he basically follows her around to try and jog his memory back. And originally she doesn't want to get interested, and she literally just got fired after letting the Doctor die. Now this is one of the scenes I really hate because it's not visually stunning like most of the scenes in the story, and plot-wise, it's just so goddamn stupid. Basically, she's fired because she basically is like, right, I went there, yeah, of course, he died, and it's horrible, but there's an X-ray that showed he had two hearts. His biology is completely different to humans, and we need to find his body quick, so we can examine, explain, and learn from him, like, why is he like that, and why he is like that. But the guy then decides to burn all the evidence of the Doctor's existence and pretend that that Grace got mixed up and got confused, so that Grace would not lose her job. What? He got rid of the only evidence that proved that she wasn't a mistake. She didn't make a mistake, at least in terms of a normal biology of what she knows of what to do, and he burns it. What? That scene, I really, really, really hate that scene. It's so stupid. Oh wait, I forgot to mention as well, Grace basically talks to Chang Li and says, it's like, sorry, but your friend passed away, and then it kind of clicks that he doesn't know who this man is, and Chang Li actually steals the Doctor's stuff and runs out of the hospital. So the Doctor's trying to learn who he is. He proves that he is the same man from last night after he pulls out a wire which was stuck in the seventh Doctor's body. Surely the regeneration would have burnt that out, I would have presumed, but apparently not. So he sticks out the body, kind of proving to Grace that he is that person, and so she comes and helps him trying to gain back his memories. Whilst this is going on, the Master, in his form, actually takes the body of one of the ambulance drivers in the ambulance that took the Doctor's body, Bruce, played by Eric Roberts. Now Eric Roberts becomes the Master now for the rest of the story. And it is one of the things this story is heavily criticised for. Eric Roberts' Master yes, yeah, it's not very mastery. He's clearly miscast. I wouldn't say he's bad. In terms of giving off a performance, he is playing it kind of over the top and it's very silly and stuff. But clearly the idea of him being a master and the directing doesn't really add up, as in some scenes he plays it like the Terminator, very cold, manipulative with calculated moves and very limited actions. Other scenes he's this raging monster and is constantly like, I must get the doctor's money. And then other times he's this cool, suave, sophisticated villain. Chang Li finds the key to the TARDIS and gets into the TARDIS, where he finds the Master and they then team up. But the Master kind of has this strange... Yeah, the Master's portrayed in this as a strange, like, schizophrenic feel in terms of his role, his acting throughout the story. I don't blame Eric Roberts. Eric Roberts is a fantastic actor. I just think he was vastly miscast, and because of his miscast as the Master, nobody knew how he should have played him, and so they gave him loads of these different kind of styles, just hoped that one of them sticks. And yes, true, it's not, doesn't feel like the Master. It's very like what people think the Master would have been, but not actually anything related to what, like, the core Master, you know, how you got the core Doctor. Well, this Master isn't anything to do with the core Master. However, it's something different. It's very unique. It's a very special, very unique incarnation of the Master, and I'm actually really glad that Big Finish have actually allowed Eric Roberts to justify him by reprising the role in a new 8th Doctor story, The Day of the Master, a Diary of River Song, which is actually the first time this Master's appeared without a Doctor, and then he had his own audio spin-off. Yes, Eric Roberts has his own audio spin-off. That's just absolutely mental. So yeah, so the Doctor and Grace are trying to discover the Doctor's memories. Now, when they're walking out on this little park, it's one of my favourite scenes, as the Doctor is getting little bits of memory, and there's this lovely description about Gallifrey and how when he was young he had him and his father looked up at the skies, and he shouts and he's like, the meteorites in the skies were dancing with lights, blues, greens, brilliant yellows, yes! These shoes, they fit perfectly. And he goggles off like a little kid. Whilst at the TARDIS, the Master and Chang Li go to the cloister room. The TARDIS is explained to like Chang Li and is some sort of like has some sort of a connection with him and allows him to like go around the TARDIS, where the Master uses him to open the Eye of Harmony, as it can only be opened by a human eye. And this is where we have one of the most critically panned bit about this story, one of the most controversial moments in all of Doctor Who canon. It is revealed after the Doctor gains his memory back, because his connection with the TARDIS and the Eye of Harmony allows him to have his memories back. But it also means that the Master now has access to some sort of data about the Doctor, as he finds out what his newest regeneration looks like, and a particular detail surrounding his eyes. The Doctor is half human. Yes, this is the story which reveals the Doctor is half human. That is stupid. That is just absolutely stupid. Who thought that was a good idea? This is actually one of the elements which actually stuck from the Leakley Bible, one of the original ideas of the Doctor Who movie, which is supposed to be like this reboot. In that story, it was actually explained that the Doctor is actually half human. His mother is from Earth. So because of his controversial heritage, he wasn't allowed to be part of the throne, to be Lord President of Gallifrey. That element, or at least the half-human element, stuck with this story. Now, later stories seem to either try to retcon it. For example, in one of the novels, I think it's explained that the Eighth Doctor, with a bit of regenerating energy, manipulated him to try and trick the Master into believing he's half-human. Why he would do that, or no idea. But mainly the New Who series mainly ignored this, despite saying that yes, Paul McGann is the official Eighth Doctor. They completely ignored the half-human aspect. There's no real way I can think of my headcanon that rectifies this. It is a massive plot hole. It's really stupid. I can understand why people hated it. It's so stupid. I don't understand why anyone would even want the Doctor to be half-human. But the Doctor's half-human in the TV movie, and it's an actual plot element of the story. Now, I've noticed that this video is going a bit long, so I'm just going to end it here. I think I've got a lot of great discussion from this, and I think I made a good video in this, so I'm not going to spoil the ending. Go watch it if you're interested. Overall, the TV movie was one of those strange aspects from what we would consider the wilderness years, the time between 1990 and 2004, in which there was no Doctor Who series on television. And this is a strange example of an Ed Doctor Who story. It's the story itself is incredibly weak. It's full of plot holes. It's full of there's a lot of elements you just constantly just think, what? How? This is stupid. Who thought the Doctor being half-human was a good idea? Who thought that the Master surviving being an Ash was a good idea? Who thought the whole opening with Daleks putting the Master on trial and then letting the Doctor, the arch enemy, take the ashes back to Gallifrey was a good idea? But the plot runs at a massively quick pace, even if that pace is detrimental to the story. I personally was never bored of it. I thought the story ran so quick that it did forget to actually tell a decent story. I will need to point out that a lot of my friends that I know personally who watched the story criticised the story for being boring and too slow, which is something, I mean, they're not wrong. That's their opinion. But personally, I found it too quick. I found it too, it's like, okay, this scene, now that scene, now this scene, now that scene. In terms of the plot. So, I don't know, I just thought that was a really surprising opinion in my opinion. So, my personal opinion, the story's never boring. It's stupid, but it's never boring. And the production of this story is easily the best looking Doctor Who story ever. In my opinion, this is what Doctor Who should look like. The mixture of gothic, Victorian, with the modern day reality and the music and the TARDIS and the intro and that goddamn awesome theme song. This, in my eyes, is what, in terms of production, what Doctor Who should look like. I just wish there was a story, a good, decent story to go with it. And there you go, you get introduced to the 8th Doctor. So, hello Paul McGann. Welcome to the Whoniverse. So, join me next time where we'll be tackling 4 stories surrounding different eras of the 8th Doctor's timeline as we meet a company of friends. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta!